Crawfordsville Green Company, a bakery equipment company that his grandfather had started. And after some discussion, we ended up making a deal. We've operated that farm. We moved over here, and now a cousin of mine is doing it. Later on, we ran into him. Our political paths crossed, whether he was elected mayor and I was elected in the General Assembly, and campaigned together in Marion County all those years. Dick brings to this arena, I think, a very unusual background. As you know, he graduated from Shortridge High School, went to Denison University where he was co-valedictorian with his wife.
Well, I'm indebted to my friend Morris Mills. He is farming together. We've had a lot of conversations about life and times in Indiana and our families for many, many years. And it's just a real pleasure to be with you today and have your generous introduction. And likewise to be with so many dear friends here, renewing ties and thinking together about the things we still have to do for Indiana and for our country. Now, let me just say that we've had a very ambitious schedule today that has been interesting, and I'll not go into all the itinerary, but we had a great visit to the John Deere factory and the Fairfield factories in Lafayette. One reason why we chose those two factories, beside the fact that they're people that are doing remarkable things, huge capital equipment, magnificent production manufacturing techniques, will be clearer as I indicate the things that are most on the minds of Hoosiers today. And you would ask, well, how in the world would you know? Well, of course, we visit with people, but we've also taken the time and effort of hundreds of volunteers, and they've made over 700,000 telephone calls on phone banks. This is a new campaign effort on our part. Those of you involved in business have heard of micro-targeting. It's an attempt to really find the entire market, to sort of slice and dice who is where geographically, age-wise, interest-wise, and so forth. And likewise, then to find specifically right now who Republican primary voters are. And we believe there are about 600,000 in Indiana who are prepared to come out and vote on May the 8th. And so we've attempted to find, therefore, what are your interests? What are the things that we need to fight and do if we're to be successful as Hoosiers and as Americans? And there are two things that rise really almost completely dominating thought now. This has not always been the case, but this is the case presently. The first is jobs, jobs, jobs. The fact that without there being more job opportunities, there will continue to be suffering of individuals, families, anxiety of families about their income, about their prospects, anxiety about the future of many industries and many parts of our state, and therefore in one form or another, voters want me to talk about jobs, and that I understand. But right along with this, almost paired together, is the issue of government spending, of deficits, of not only unbalanced budgets, but huge deficits at the federal government level, of a situation that financially seems to be virtually out of control. And these two run together to the exclusion of almost everything else. There will be ample time for each one of you to raise questions about anything else you want to talk about, but let me talk about these issues that are most on the minds of Hoosiers today. First of all, we've asked then to gain the help of our constituents, what things are we involved in now that can make a difference? What views do you have about specific actions that we've taken? The first thing that comes to the mind of many people is the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. The thought that there really has to be some framework, some metrics by which to measure the success we're going to have, that after all, local governments, state governments, ordinary businesses, have to balance the budget, income and outcome. And as a result of this, we pointed out that I voted 17 times now for balanced budget amendments. That none of them have succeeded, in part because at that point a majority of people in the country, at least as reflected by their representatives in Congress, did not see the urgency of doing this. As a matter of fact, may have felt constrained. If you had a balanced budget amendment, and you really did have to balance the budget each year, about all the programs and about all the things that people might want. I understand that problem. Most folks know, if you don't, let me just say that 70% of the federal budget is made up of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the defense budget. That's 70% to begin with. And these are budgets that, by and large, many constituents do not want us fooling around with. They would say, if anything, we need to strengthen the defense budget, not be counting on $500 billion worth of cuts, which are now being debated in the Congress, for example. But in any event, balance the budget. The issue will come back up again this year. I will vote for a balanced budget amendment. I will work to gain even more of my colleagues to vote for that amendment. Maybe we will have more success in this atmosphere given the type of responses I've heard from Hoosiers, and others must be hearing from their constituents around the country. Now, the second thing that people brought up, and this affects reflects the jobs issue, is our battle for the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, this is not the end of the world, but it is a current example of a situation in which very clearly the Keystone pipeline, which is a 1,700-mile pipeline all the way from northern Canada down to the Gulf Coast, would employ about 20,000 people immediately to build the pipeline. One of the reasons for visiting John Deere and the Caterpillar people and the Fairfield people was that they're heavily involved in this. They know, as a matter of fact, how to produce the equipment that is required to go into oil sands, to do the fracking exercise, to do those things which are most productive and most controversial right now in energy recovery, whether in this country or in Canada. As a result, I've discovered that the building of the pipeline would probably lead to pretty close to 5,000 to 10,000 more Hoosier jobs in the short run, and a good many more in the follow-through of additional equipment, supplies, resupply, and what have you. So this is not a hypothetical. These are real jobs right now. You say, well, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that the White House sent the whole idea of the Keystone pipeline over to the State Department almost 3 years ago. Why to the State Department? Because they said, well, after all, it crosses an international boundary between the United States and Canada. I can't believe the State Department really had any more competence than many others in determining environmental issues, safety issues, whatever else was to be discovered. But nevertheless, that's where it was parked. After a while, my friends at the State Department felt they had studied the thing enough that there was a good idea there. They sent it back to the White House. The President was not exactly pleased to see it coming back, and he was even more displeased when, very shortly thereafter, a crowd named as tens of thousands surrounded the White House on a Sunday, all shouting and condemning the President for even considering the XL pipeline. Now, why would these folks be so excited? Well, a good number of reasons, of course. Some genuinely feel that citizens of Nebraska were jeopardized, that the water aquifer, which is very important for agriculture as well as communities in that state, might be in some jeopardy. When Nebraskans had spotted that problem, their legislature had met, and as a matter of fact, had helped the XL people reroute things so there would not be that conflict. The more fundamental reason the people were protesting is one that each one of you might consider, and I have, although I was astonished to hear people really espousing this so vigorously. They said simply, the XL pipeline will in fact bring a huge amount of oil into the United States. And as a matter of fact, our dependency upon foreign oil would be reduced very substantially. Canada's still a foreign country, but a friendly one, as opposed to dealing with Venezuela or the Middle Eastern countries or so forth. Likewise, natural gas might come along through that. But the point the so-called environmental people were making was we should not, in fact, have any more oil in the United States. And we should be working our way away from oil, away from natural gas, away from coal, away from so-called fossil fuels. They create CO2. They create a problem with regard to climate change. They believe that climate change is principally man-made and that we are spoiling the atmosphere and potential life for our children and our grandchildren. And they feel this very strongly. So if you feel that strongly, you're not going to be convinced on the jobs issue or energy independence or whatever. And this is the argument they were making. Well, the president faced the dilemma of a very, very strong group that claimed to be a part of his constituency, and many labor unions will also claim to be a part of his constituency. And they said, Mr. President, we need the jobs. We need them now. Are you our friend or are you not our friend? Tough problem for the president. So the president said, well, this is going to require some more study. And we're not going to be able to come up really with an answer. As a matter of fact, I'm sending it back to the State Department. I'm asking them to report back to me in February of 2013. Now, mind you, without doing the math, it's too complicated. The general election to the president is in 2012, November, about 4 months before that time. But in any event, the president felt that was the best way to handle the XL pipeline. Now, at this point, with the help of Neil Brown, a very gifted staff member we have in energy policy, we drafted a bill that said, Mr. President, you must give us a decision in 60 days, not February of 2013. The only reason why you might not say yes would be a matter of national security, if you can define that. And so people said, well, that's very interesting. Lots of bills are offered every day. None of them are moving. Congress is really in gridlock. But I had a press conference announcing this bill, and my Republican friends were so excited they leapt on the stage to be a part of the picture and to be a part of the event. In fact, by the end of the day, we had 46 co-sponsors, and even one brave Democrat came along. Now, over in the House, they got excited about that. Many had thought about XL pipeline, so they decided to adopt the Lugar language, and their bill then coincided, which is helpful. And then came along an opportunity, namely the end of the year situation in which the Congress decided to, for 60 days, extend the payroll tax cut, the Social Security tax from 6 to 4, and the payment of the Medicare doctors, the so-called doc fix and so forth. And this passed both houses, not easily, but it occurred. And the president signed it because this really was something that was critical for him as well as for his constituents. So, in fact, since the Lugar bill was amended into that, it passed too. So now the president had to make the decision. He took a few days, maybe 30 days as I recall, and finally said no. He said, this is too complex. You don't get it. It's got to be studied more. As I've said before, I think February of 2013 is about the right time to take this up. So now we've proceeded to amend our bill, change it again, and we simply say XL pipeline must go ahead. Doesn't require the president to sign anything, to study anything more. We feel that that really has been determined. I was heartened last week that the House of Representatives passed my amendment as a part of the transportation bill. The transportation bill may or may not move. It's very complex. We've been trying to build a bill that dealt with highways and rail and what have you for some time in both houses. This may or may not be the year. But if it's not the transportation bill, then something else coming along. All I'm saying is this is something we're pursuing very vigorously because we believe it's very important for our country's security. We're certain it's important in terms of a job builder. And it does at least focus the Congress not on these bland generalities of people saying we've got to have more jobs, we've got to have more and so forth. You finally really have to do the workmanlike chores of getting legislation, of persuading people to vote for it, of finding the vehicles that might make it possible. So this is what we are about. And constituents, at least in our telephone bank surveys, felt this is something they were very strongly wanting me to continue with. Now, they also said, and while you're at it, however, we commend your support for Congressman Ryan, Paul Ryan, chairman of the House Budget Committee, who came up last year with the Ryan plan or the Ryan budget. I mention this because despite all of the conversation about balancing the budget, about deficits and so forth, what is often overlooked is that the Congress has not passed a budget for the last 3 years. The President has not made even a serious proposal of a budget for the last 3 years. Well, you ask, well, how in the world can this be? Local governments have budgets, even the library board. The state governments clearly. How does the federal government handle this? And the quick answer is by so-called CRs, continuing resolutions.